I have the greatest respect for human resources professionals. Um, and the reason being is it's a difficult position to be in. But I learned that, I'm going to say, I learned that and saw that the hard way, right? So ultimately, what I learned during kind of negotiating and navigating the workplace is human resources have two things to manage. They have to manage the interests of the organization and they have to manage the interests of the individual. And this is not all HR professionals. I'm just saying what I've seen. Remember, this is the things I've learned through navigating the workplace is in the moment that your individual interests come into conflict with that of the organization, while we would always like to believe that the individual interest would also take precedence, it rarely does. And I think that's sometimes why there's a lack of trust for HR when people have seen too many instances of complaints processes or know that someone's complained and then they've also left the business thereafter and the person who was the aggressor is still in the business. It creates that sense of distrust. But it also puts a question mark around what is the human in human resources if it's not to take care of the individual. Um, and kind of going through the seeing the HR process from both sides, i.e., as an individual, but also working with HR professionals, I realized that it is a very, very difficult. It should be straightforward. Many things should be straightforward, and they're not. Um, but it's a very, very difficult line and a difficult space to balance because of the bureaucracy, politics, power dynamics that all run in the background. So I'm not going to, and I'll be very honest, and I would say, I was probably before having worked with more HR professionals, I was probably less sympathetic because I was like, you chose the job and you choose to pick company over individual. And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I've learned that there's more to it than what we see, even though from an individual perspective, and still now, my perspective is there is more that needs to be changed in organizations from a governance perspective. There is more that needs to be changed to be improved from the complaints perspective, from the, all of that. There is a lot that needs to be changed. There is no question, no doubt in my mind. Absolutely. But I also recognize the fallout of the fact that things need to be changed is often at the cost of individuals. So my advice at the end of all of this is, and what I've learned is, if you are so lucky to have any friends in HR or access to other people in HR because you have a particular situation, I would always recommend kind of getting informal advice just so that you have a better understanding from a professional's, a HR professional's perspective, um, as to how they as to how that could potentially play out, the possibilities, the kinds of things that may be being negotiated in the background, so that you have a better idea before you step into these conversations. Because, as one who knows, naively stepping into these conversations without any preparation um, can have or can be the most detrimental to you. So yeah, leverage your friends. If you can, just ask for some help, find ways to get help, just because it's still a high stakes game. It is still a high stakes game.